what's up everyone? Today we have a GX160 5.5 horsepower Honda on a Makita plate compactor, model number NVC. It's too covered in dirt, and also that pipe is for you, but either way, it's a plate compactor. It's a fairly common one. It's not the big one. I do believe they make a heavier duty one, or at least one with two belts. That's not the point of the story. Point is, person says that they've had it for a while and never really used it, because when they were using it last, it started to leak fuel on both around the fuel cap and somewhere down here. They weren't sure. They thought maybe both, but they wanted me to fix the tank. After that started happening, they've had multiple of these. They are pretty much in the winter time right now, so they want to get everything ready for next year, and they brought this over to me. Now, this tank, if you look inside there, has some nasty gas. Nasty. And it also has some rust. So he wants me to fix this. I asked him if it was more appropriate to repair or replace, and he said he doesn't care. If it's not too expensive, replace it, which, let me explain why. It's going to be very, very minimal in comparison. I bought a white version of this. Same tank, just white. It's not going to go with the aesthetics, but it's a work machine. He doesn't care. If you were to buy... okay, let's back up. When you take off the cap here, I mean, obviously the tank is rippled, so that's going to be a leak. As you can tell, it's also leaking right, bent right there, so that's going to cause a leak. This seal is really hard. It's really just not that good. It's pretty much trash. So we were going to need another fuel cap. We're going to have to bend out the tank. Right there, it looks like debris, and it is debris, but that's me scraping the rust off the bottom and to go into the light so you can see. There's not a whole lot of rust there, but there is a whole lot of rust on this side. Not really sure. The fuel filter is completely trashed, broken, and plugged. So I think it got plugged. They broke it so they could have fuel, and then that then caused problem number 2 of what we'll get into next. So we're going to need fuel filter, cap, and deal with the broken or a potentially leaking tank to begin with. So for $21.42 or something like that, I was able to get a tank with a fuel filter with a cap, and that to me seemed like a pretty good deal, especially since this cap, which they do sell in a kit of a cap and 2 fuel filters and potentially a section of fuel line, I don't remember that much, for roughly $10 or $11. So for $10 more, I got all that. And mind you, the ones that came in that kit were plastic. The one that came on the tank appears to be some type of metal. Probably not. Maybe it's just something that's painted to look like metal. But either way, got that for $10 more, and it's going to save a whole lot of hassle. Removing these fuel filters is not easy. So I think that's going to be the way we're going to go. So let's go ahead and get started with that. Usually you would not have to take off the carb, but it's just going to gain us access, and I'm not going to have to worry about it. So while I'm doing this, let's explain something else he told me. Because it's been sitting there for so long, he tried to, start it. Nothing. So in addition to having bad fuel, bad carb, pretty much bad everything, we're going to have to replace the carb or clean it. So that's why we're going to be doing it now. And to remove the fuel line is going to be a lot easier without that in our way. Let's see if this can clear you. There we go. But to remove the carb isn't that hard to begin with. A couple 10 millimeters and we're set. Now, if you really need to be thrifty about this, you very well could both clean the carb, repair the tank, and have little to no, oh wow, was stuck too. Little to no cost, really. That smells horrible. Anyway, but considering where we're at right now with this, to me, that doesn't seem like a very good idea. We do need to take off a couple of bolts here. Whenever you're working on stuff, it's always a good idea to disconnect the spark plug. This long bolt goes directly into the tank, and removing the tank is pretty straightforward. It's not too much that's going to be difficult on that, but it's also is still something that you're going to want to take your time on, because it can leak. In fact, it most definitely probably will be leaking. And since we're going to be replacing the carb anyway, it's going to be a lot easier. In fact, I'll just do that now. If we just start to do the removal now, because the fuel line is on the carb, but it's also kind of wound around and underneath a little bit of the case here, so it's going to be a little difficult to really work on to get the fuel line off, as well as to not spill it. So if we can take anything off that we can, including this throttle linkage, it's just going to make our life easier. Like I said, even if you don't need to remove the carb, I still probably would. The fuel line, though, it does feel pretty soft when I was clamping it down. It felt surprisingly decent. Anything to do with concrete is a special type of dirty. This is no exception. Okay, we're gonna put this away someplace safe, because it does have fuel in there. Okay, now that that is mostly done, we're going to take this linkage, just kind of move it out of our way, because this over here is going to kind of catch on it. Just no fun. And now there's two 10 millimeters down here, which I'm just going to remove real quick. Probably helps if I do it the right way. I'm gonna remove two of them right there, one on the right behind it. All out. This is gonna be the annoying part, because there is fuel in this tank. It's going to leak even if we do put this on, but it's going to keep some of it in there. So now we're going to lift up the fuel line a little bit, kind of get another set of vice grips on it. I know what you're thinking. Why didn't you have this ready before? And trust me, I'm thinking the same thing. There we go. Now we release this. This is probably going to leak a little bit. Or maybe not at all. Maybe it's so plugged up in there and no fuel's going through. It leaked a little. Okay, there you go. That one is off. Now we're just going to put the new one on. Few developments happened. One, I found out that it is the exact same one. I thought I saw metal, but I didn't. And two, do you ever buy those cheap carb kits and it always comes like these sections of fuel line that you never understand why they include that, because it doesn't fit what you need it for, that's for sure. Well, the reason why is because it fits this. I think they all just kind of include for this style of engine. I mean, I would say it's probably a good idea to include it only when needed, but you know, maybe a GCV160 one day will need that. Who knows? But the old fuel line has like this protective cover on there. It's good because it is basically touching the engine. So I put that back on there. So now I'm just going to put it back on the fuel line and back on the engine. Tighten up the 10 millimeters. I'll hold it down and be done with that. Now why not? Why don't you just come over and watch? So this fuel line just needs to be shoved down and through here. So it can come out. That's the hard part. Where we needed to. And it kind of did. There we go. That just fits in right there. We pull the fuel line to give it some proper amount of slack. And there we have it. We want to make sure this is also there. The reason why Kyle brought you back as well is this. So remember how I was mentioning it was only $10 technically for a tank, depending on, or considering what I would have to buy anyway. I'm gonna keep these loose and I'll explain why in a minute. Well, I'm under no illusion this is going to be a very high quality tank, but considering there's rust in this, and even if I were to fix it, if there's a hole in there, I'd either have to use some type of epoxy that's fuel safe. That doesn't really look too professional. Or two, I would have to clean it out very thoroughly and weld it a little bit. I'm not really liking the idea of welding on the fuel tank. It's just not really my forte. So, even though it's not the highest of quality, remember it's still not tightened down all the way. In my opinion, this is probably the better way to go, because at the end, it's going to have a protective coating. It's going to not have rust. It's going to have a brand new fuel filter. It's going to have a brand new fuel line, brand new fuel cap. Everything's going to be new on it. And if this engine outlasts the tank, then so be it. Another one is still only $21. So that's why. And for what it is, it really isn't all that bad. Why is this one so? Oh, that's why. Too long of a screw. Or not. Now I probably did it to myself. This is not the easiest thing to keep in track. There we go, much better. I think there was like dirt or something on it. And then this one is on the other side. Very good. Or nope. That goes on the top. So yeah, that's why I did it. Let's go ahead and do the carb next. Not gonna lie, this is also a clone carb, but when considering it, let's think about this. Excuse me, I'm trying to figure out the gasket situation going on here. Doesn't seem right. No, that's because it's backwards. Smart one. Still backwards, smart one. There we go. That's better. These carbs are very simple. If it was a larger engine, like 10 or 12 or 15 or anything really larger than, I would say 8, yeah, your carb is, you're probably not going to want to use a aftermarket carb, and if you do, which I have, trust me, in fact my own personal generator sitting right by my foot right now has a aftermarket carb installed on it. But if you do get one of those, you're definitely going to want to, I don't know why I did that, you're definitely going to want to rejet it. In fact, it'd be better to take your jets out of your old one, clean it very thoroughly, and then I might actually have to cut it. After you clean it, oh, nope, I need to put that clip back on there. Anyway, after you get done cleaning it, the jet very thoroughly, install it, and you should be fine. Wait, maybe not, I think. Yeah, I'll have to cut off a little bit. But this is a 5.5 horsepower. It might be running lean a little bit, but if it is, that's not that hard to fix. We have micro drill bits. We're not afraid to use them. Because in reality, the hole that you're making bigger, it's pretty minuscule to begin with. So one little addition here and there can make a big difference. So it's not the end of the world if you do have to make a small adjustment here or there. There we go. And I don't really know why we have to have both, but we do. We're going to use it. I think we are ready for the final piece here. Now, the one thing in this carb kit that did come in here is this little spark plug, if that's what you want to call that. It is total trash. 100%, don't even bother, just throw that bad boy away. If you do, I guess you could recycle too. If you make little piston characters, then maybe use it to make a piston character. Recycling is always good, but it most definitely belongs nowhere near an operating engine, because once it does go in that operating engine, it will very quickly become a non-operating engine. Because that's just how these like to work. Those spark plugs are just total garbage. Total garbage. Fingerprint on the pre-filter. It will have to do. The old one didn't even have a pre-filter. So because this is a compactor, it shakes. I don't really like to have it shake on the table. I just noticed that. That's not normal. I mean, it's not horrendous. I just don't really like it. Probably have one somewhere, but I guess it's good for more airflow. It's sealed from the top, so pretty much every location that it could possibly draw air from, it should be filtering it, so that hole is not a problem. I think we are ready to put some fuel in this. I already checked the oil, and the oil is dirty, but it's okay to run. I didn't check spark, but I don't suspect that it's going to have any spark related problems, and we should be ready to go. For ease of installation, I did not check the tank if it had any leaks in it, but this also came with a fuel strainer. I forgot to mention that. But you should, if you do want to check before you install the tank, is when you want to do that. I didn't put a whole lot of fuel in there because if there is a leak, I don't want it to waste that much. Fuel is off on the carb. Let's turn that on. There we go. Sometimes it helps if you just pay attention. We're dry. Let's give it about another 10-15 seconds. Move this out of the way while I do so. We're waiting for the fuel to flow. If it is leaking, it's going to make it a little easier to see. I don't see anything leaking. I don't smell any gas. Because we don't want to shake ourselves to death, let's go to slow. On. Choke is facing this way, so I think we are ready to go. I like the low idle as much as the next person, but that was too low. Well, let's try that again. This pull cord is like 2 feet long. That engine definitely needs a little bit additional work, but it seems to run. Mind you, it is about, let's see, according to my watch here, 31 degrees today. So it's cold, and it's only ran for a couple seconds. So I'm gonna take it out back where there's a little dirt to run this in, And if it's good to go, we'll leave it at that. If not, we'll bring you back and we'll have another video on how to fix this. But in the meantime, if you have a GX160, 190, 140, any of these style of engines like this, or if you have the off ones, Predator, Tillotson, I wouldn't really consider Tillotson an off-brand though, but definitely Predator, or any of the mini Chinese clones out there, this is going to be how you're going to replace a fuel tank. If it's leaking, you're definitely going to want to replace it. If it's dented like this, I would say it's probably better just to replace it, because it's going to be a whole lot harder to repair it, and the likelihood of it being damaged, because it is pretty thin metal, it's pretty high in my opinion. So I would just replace it no matter what. Like I said, it's not the greatest one, but it is a good replacement and it gets the job done. Holds fuel, doesn't leak, it's not dented, has a fuel tank, or assuming a fuel cap, it's not leaking. I'm okay with that. Okay, if you like what you see, keep watching, subscribe, catch me on the next video. You have a good rest of your day, and check me out on Instagram, smallengine101. Have a good day.